When you're creating a value scale in graphite, which is in pencil, you're going to use different leads to your advantage. 2H is the hardest lead pencil that you're going to get today. The harder the lead, the more durable the end is, so less of the color or less of the tone will come off onto your paper. 2B is a medium type of lead. This is kind of close to the type of pencil you'd use for standard writing and for the PSSA test. That will make medium tones. And then the 6B has very soft lead, so more of the lead will come off of the pencil tip and onto your paper, allowing you to get very dark tones. The key to a value scale is that each of the shades is consistently shaded in when you do graphite, which is not very easy to do. So you want to use an even amount of pressure and you want to keep layering it so that it looks consistent with each block. Similarly, each block needs to slowly get darker. If all the blocks do not get darker and also do not look different, then you are going to lose points. The very first block in most value scales is completely white. Of course, we're doing tones. The very last block should be the darkest you can make it, closest to what we call black. So you're going to leave the first block white. You're then going to start to shade in using your 2H pencil, and I'd suggest doing maybe 2 of the blocks in 2H. If you really like any of the pencils, you can use them for more blocks than I have listed here, but this will let you choose each pencil and use a variety of leads to see how you can get different types of tones when shading. So my first block is white. My second block is going to be the lightest gray that I can possibly make. The biggest mistake people make is they try to get too dark too soon with their value scale. So you want to barely touch the paper with your 2H pencil. That's the hardest leaded pencil. Your goal should be to stay consistent, so you don't want to push hard in some areas and lighter in others. And you want to use your little piece of scrap paper to your advantage. While we're not painting today, it will help you define the edges of your value scale. So line it up with the edges and just kind of make sure you're not overlapping. Of course, if you do go outside the lines, you're using pencil. So what are you going to do? You're going to use an eraser to kind of clean it up, since craftsmanship or neatness is always a part of your grade. So you can see I have this shaded in here. It's relatively consistent. There's some dark and there's some light areas. You have 2 options. You could either keep going back over it to kind of make it consistent, or if you want it to look soft, you can kind of blend it in with a paper towel or a tissue. Now I'm kind of going fast here so that I don't take up too much of your time, but if this were me, I would work on perfecting that a little bit more just to make sure it's totally consistent before moving on to the next block. Now you can see I'm still using my 2H pencil, so I'm going to go ahead and try to make this next block slightly darker than the second block. Staying consistent, using an even amount of pressure, staying in the lines and thinking about craftsmanship. I am not going to do this entire value scale, but I do want to do just a few of the things, a few of the blocks on here, so you can see the differences in the pencils and also kind of see what it is that I'm looking for in the end. It's a little different than the ones that I show you in class, because those were a little bit more difficult with more steps. Sometimes it's also good to sort of change directions of your pencil. It helps you overlap and fill in the little spots that you did not get. So now you can see that I have a tone, a block of tone that is just slightly darker than the one that I previously did. Move away my scrap paper, do a little bit of erasing, soften it a bit if I want to, and it's progressively getting darker. Now I'm not going to shade in the whole block, but you can see now I'm into the center 3 blocks where it's labeled 2B. Once I switch to my 2B pencil, I just want you to see the difference in the lead. I am barely pushing, and you can see how it's a lot darker because the lead in it is softer, so more of it's coming out of the pencil and onto the paper. Similarly, if I would come up here eventually and shade in my black spot, the 6B, which is very, very soft, makes really, really dark lines. And again, I'm not putting a ton of pressure on this, it's just the nature of a pencil. So the different leads allow us to get different types of techniques and different tones when we're shading. Please remember, every block should be consistent. You should have them shaded in neatly and stay in the lines. And anytime you are doing a value scale, you need to check the values when you're done. Don't look at the value scale as a whole, but create a little viewfinder with your hands and just stare at 2 blocks at a time. So the second block is a little bit darker than the first, which is white. The second block is also shaded in consistently. Then I shift down and look at block 2 and 3. The third block is a little bit darker than the second, so there is a difference, and both blocks are consistently shaded in. and in the line, so I'll get full credit for craftsmanship, etc., etc.,